has been with us for a very long time and is beloved to us. He been in the mental health industry for a very long time, and he got here based on his love of people, and many of you are here, know that, and that's why you are here. He achieved his master's in 2013 and got his doctorate in 2019 and has been practicing ever since and brought us this awesome book that we are here to celebrate. Fred, come on out.
Chapter 3 was where I was starting to explore my mental health at this point. So whenever you are going through difficult times in life, the first thing that affects you is your mental health. As instinctive as it was, I neglected my mental health as well. At this point in life, I was lost and living my life in autopilot. Anybody understand that? Yeah. So living my life in autopilot, I was going with the flow and was totally numb. I didn't even realize that I was doing this. I was just trying to live life and make life happen. Going through all this stuff, I know in the Black community we tend to not seek mental health therapy because we didn't know. I know my parents didn't know. We thought it was for white folks, basically, right? So, okay, now let me see if I can go back to where I was. Yeah, I felt like an orphan. I continued to struggle with hiding the scars from anyone I met. I was afraid to be around men for the fear that they would verbally abuse or judge me. And where that line comes from is my brother was verbally abusive to me when I was growing up. And so what I realized as I got older, when I would be in a room with strange people, I would get anxious and wouldn't know what to do and kind of, stop talking, and just people probably thought I was stuck up or whatever. And it still happens, but I'm more aware of it now. Okay? And so my burn trauma and its impact on my body were always present in my mind. Some incidents never leave you alone and haunt you for the rest of your life. The same was the case with my burn trauma. If someone wronged me, I would avoid them and hope they would leave me alone so that I would not have to face the situation. I had terrible coping skills resulting of all the damage I had experienced. And coping skills, do y'all know what those are? Okay. And so that's all I'll read. That's chapter 3. That's when I started exploring and kind of becoming self-aware of what I was going through and how it was impacting me as I was growing up. Okay, so coping skills are things that we do to kind of just make it through whatever negative situation that we have. I always tell clients when they first come in, the first thing that we do is we start talking about childhood. We try to see what coping skills you did in childhood that you still carry on into adulthood, and I will explain. So say for instance, if you grew up and mom and dad were arguing in that room over there, and you heard them, and so you went into your room and isolated yourself. That was your coping skill, because you waited for that to be over. But see, the problem with that, if you do that as an adult, what's the problem?
You never face the problem.
You never face the problem, and you never communicate. So you're not learning how to communicate about issues. And so I'm sure some of y'all do that in your relationships. Like when you're arguing, you'll just go and just go away. Michelle says no. What do you do, Michelle? You stay right there, Anthony. Oh. Good. Good.
I gotta finish. Walk away on the phone. I ain't gonna walk away. I ain't go to bed angry.
Good. So that wasn't your coping mechanism.
No.
But you get the gist of coping skills, right? All right. Y'all ready?
So my perspective of what therapy is, because younger growing up, I had no awareness what therapy is. I didn't learn until like mid-20s, right? So the present moment, I believe therapy is the opportunity for you to come into awareness with your subconscious and like seeing the different things that your ego will actually have. So therapy is an opportunity for you to have a self-reflection of self, to have a healing in essence.
Okay. Y'all like that?
That's a good one. I think you got some more questions?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I came up with a new question when you were talking about your experience with your brother
Okay.
and the verbal abuse that you faced as a child, with him. And it made me think about the tradition of playing the dozens and Jones in the Black community. And I was thinking, do you think that may be a coping skill or mechanism for the persistent trauma that we face in the Black experience? That could be a way of dealing, just making us kind of like numb, as you use that word, numb to just the persistent trauma that we face in society.
So do you think can you rephrase
Like, do
that?
you think that that tradition of like Jones and playing the dozen, and how that can lead to some other sorts of verbiage that's used, towards people that can be hurtful? Do you think that that may be a coping mechanism or a coping skill for the persistent trauma that we face?
You think from my brother's perspective?
Yeah, just wonder from your perspective, do you think that may be?
Well, I had to kind of look at, I don't know, because my brother, now that I'm looking back, I felt like he had a mental health issue. I felt like he did use substance abuse at a young age. And so the Jones, you mean like him just
Not
battering?
him particularly, but
Okay.
that just sparked that thought, just generally speaking, like in our culture. Like not your brother per se, because like you said, that was associated towards other things, but just period. Like if you thought,
I
what were
don't
your
know.
thoughts around that?
I don't know. What about y'all? Do y'all?
Yeah, I think it can definitely be something that people use as a coping mechanism because, like, a lot of times I know that, like, bigger kids in school, they tend to be the ones that have to learn how to joke and Jones to kind of protect themselves from being a target all the time. So if you a big kid and you got to be able to know how to jive, because if you don't, then you're going to be the one that's always the butt of the joke and always having problems. So I definitely think we use, Black people in general, we use humor as a way to kind of heal our own trauma. So I definitely can see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's it.
Thank you. Oh, I had to be more, but I forgot.
Any questions out there for me?
No, I haven't read the book.
Okay.
What does the word, I think you said burn? What's the meaning of that?
Oh, burn trauma?
Yeah.
Oh, so because you haven't read the book, I don't want to, but I will. So when I was a little kid, I was 2 years old, and I was playing in the kitchen. I knocked over a pot of boiling water onto myself. And that's the burn trauma that I experienced at 2 years old. And so from that point up until now, every time I get around people, that gives me anxiety because I'm thinking that they're staring at my scars. And so that's why the book is Black Boy Anxiety, because that was one of the traumas in there.
In the book, is the focus more so on like just general anxiety for Black men, or is there any focus on complex PTSD?
It's just general anxiety, and it starts off like a memoir, so it's me just going through my life, and then in the middle, I think close to the middle, it turns into like a self-help where I talk about general anxiety, and I talk about racial, being traumatized by racial, and I talk about Ahmaud Arbery and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Any more questions, John?
I have a comment, not necessarily a question. Well, because me and Fred went to school together, and so knowing Fred, he's always been such a helpful person. Like we study together, we've done projects together, and hearing you say some of the things, I would have never picked up on the fact that Fred had anxiety. Like I would have never thought that you were anxious about anything because you didn't carry yourself that way. So it kind of lends it back to like how we can't really judge a book by its cover, because again, Fred was the one that I would always run to be like, oh my God, when does this paper due? What do we got to do? Because I could always depend on him to be there. So to know that somebody could have it all together, but not really be all together inside, like it's one of those things, like you just never know by looking at somebody from the outside what they're really dealing with inside.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of my sister students said that too. They were like, oh, it makes me feel like I know you better because I didn't know you were going through that. Even with Zumba, like that was the anxious thing for me to even get up in front of the class. Nobody knew that struggle. But when I first started, that was a struggle. And then once I got acclimated to it, then it became. But I'm still, if you notice, I go into my own world. When I teach them, like, oh, I'm serious.
I think we got a few more questions.
I was gonna ask about the impact of anxiety on professional relationships, but you answered that in this conversation now about how anxiety can impact professional relationships. It's really interesting that it seems it's less detectable in professional relationships than personal. Some of the traits come out are more noticeable in personal relationships, and then professionally, because we feel like oftentimes we have to come in with a certain facade and togetherness, that we do just cover, what's going on inside, as you said, and you never know. But personally, everybody can know something about you, and then professionally, no one knows.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because I think I turn off the switch. I turn on one switch, turn off the other one.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all understand that. Like when I do stuff professionally, I'm on it. Well, I'm top notch. I'm trying to figure out how to process, get this done, do it right. So therefore, I'm not so focused on that anxiety. But personal life, then you'll probably see it more.
You know what I wonder too, Fred? Like, I wonder, just back to the Black experience and us being expert code switchers and such, I wonder, does that help? Like, is that just another level of that switch? Like how we code switch, and you can switch it with whether it's anxiety, whether it's language, whatever it is, we can hit that switch and just go into another mode.
Do you think we're taught to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We are.
By whom?
Yeah.
I don't remember ever being near any, like, I have a really good long-term memory, and I just remember, like, my aunties and my mother's friends and all those people were like, they act a certain way when they were at the PTA meeting, and then, there might be an incident where they're on the picking us up from school, and then they had to talk a certain way to the finance person. And they had, I just remember spending a day with my mom and seeing her be 3 people.
Yeah.
And that's the only ones that I counted, And no, see, and I have vivid memories of that. And then I remember when I went off to college, she didn't tell me that. I knew I had to do it though. That wasn't the thing my mom told me this is going to happen. It's just that I knew I was going to have to do that.
So I was just thinking, people out there who don't know what code switching is, it's when you kind of change up your personalities to fit the environment that you're in, basically. If y'all didn't know that. Yes.
My name's Gary. I got a question that I've always ran into.
Gary?
Since I've been in Georgia, since '93, but I've always been like the head of whatever company I was with as far as the maintenance. But I always have a problem when dealing with Black men, because if I can tell them what to do, because I have the one license to do it, they won't do it. So if they ask one of a different race, and they tell them the same, kind of what I told them, but not as right, they listen to them, and I keep going through that even today.
Wow.
In my job sites, and it's like, I stand there, then they come back to me and say, why you always smile? Because I do smile a lot, because I don't let things get to me, but I'm kind of used to it, but should I be used to it?
Wow. What do y'all think? What did y'all hear?
Yeah, I heard it. I mean, I don't think it's something anyone should have to get used to, but it's something that's pretty, common. Like when you're talking about, being in a supervisory role or leadership role in any organization, typically it's our own people that don't want to follow what we say, but they will follow what the man says or someone that's of a different ethnicity. And I think it just goes back to that whole crab in the bucket mentality that a lot of African Americans have. And so I think it goes back, honestly, all the way back to slavery. You had different, types of, the house people versus field people. Not trying to use the word, but y'all know what I'm saying. But those people versus each other, I think we just as a society are taught to kind of be against each other. So I think it all goes back to that, unfortunately.
And how does it make you feel when that happens?
Like I say, I'm from Indiana, Indianapolis.
Okay.
It usually happened there. Since I've been in Georgia, it's just so much.
Mm.
And I have people coming to me from New York, electricians, guys, and I'm maintenance director. And I have a lot of certifications and license, but the thing about it is, they say I can't work here. So what's wrong with it? I said, I don't know. I just get used to it. That's what I say, because I don't know what to tell them. So that's all I can say, is that I don't understand it, why it always happens. And I've talked to people in the field, in my field, from other states, and it really doesn't happen as much. But they notice it. It notices it, because that's all. I just was wondering, that's, anyway, that's it.
I think a big thing is that people see Atlanta as like a chocolate city, but forget that it's in Georgia. And so you get outside of Metro Atlanta, and it's still very much the antebellum South. And so a lot of people come into the city for work and bring those attitudes with them. And I think that has a lot to do with cultural competence going both ways, and learning how to deal with those situations and being sometimes the only or the person in power. Because I'm in trucking, so there's a lot of different personalities in the trucking industry, and oftentimes, some of our drivers, I want to speak to the manager, and they hear that the manager is a Shanice. Oh, she's the manager? Is she black? Or I don't know how many conversations I get that end in, but I'm not racist.
Wow.
Type of thing. And, again, like I said, it comes down to that cultural competence, because I'm not going to let you take me out of character because you don't know any better. So that's something I had to internalize when coming down to the South, and remembering the type of people you're dealing with from all different types of walks of life, who may have never seen a person of color before, believe it or not.
Right.
You may think, it's 2022, everybody's been exposed. No, absolutely not. So I think we have to carry that with us and know that, I hate to use the term give them a pass, but excuse their ignorance. Because that's something that they need to deal with on their own.
Right.
It has nothing to do with you or your abilities or your authority. It's something to do that they need to deal with internally.
And I work as a supervisor, and I go through exactly the same thing with Hispanics. I'm bilingual, and as soon as I speak Spanish to somebody, and you all know that I had trouble with Sylvia and a few other people, they are insubordinate when they find out, you're just Hispanic. I'll wait till the white guy tells me.
Wow.
So it happens in our race as well. It happens in our culture as well. That once they know you're Hispanic, they're like, not gonna really take you seriously, not really gonna be, scared of you. So that does happen a lot in our.
Thank both of y'all for sharing that and being vulnerable to share it in the audience.
I think we have time for about one more question. Do we have another question? Yes, Miss Judy. Oh, okay, we can get into.
So my question is, I haven't read the book yet, but I will. But I wanted to know, what was the turning point when you realized, okay, I have this anxiety, but I'm going to turn it around and use it to help others?
Well, helping others came early before I realized that the anxiety was taking over. The anxiety started when I got I was flying back from Thailand. I had flew to Thailand with some Zumba friends. We went there, stayed there 2 weeks. On the way back, I was sitting on a plane, sleep, and this guy fell over on me, and I jumped up. Heart beating, sweating, so I was having a panic attack. But I didn't know what it was. And so I went to the back of where the flight attendants were, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. Can I stand here? They gave me water. And so from that point on, I've suffered from claustrophobia. I don't know how which is a form of anxiety. And so from that point on, then I realized, you got a problem. There's something wrong, because me and some Zumba students, we went to see you, Jeremiah, at Sweet Almond Fest or one of those. But we were coming back, and I hadn't had anything but coffee that morning, and we got in an Uber car, and in the back, I was in the back seat, and the lady didn't have air on. I had to have her stop the car so I could get out, because I was about to tear her car just trying to get out. But what I realized, and that's when I started realizing that I had a problem, and that this is deeper than just being nervous. That's why I said anxiety is not just you just going. No, it's if you focus on the past or you focus on the future and you're not paying attention to what is in front of you, a lot of that is anxiety. But what I learned from that too was coffee. Caffeine and anxiety don't go together. Not at all.
All right, our last question.
We'll get you. Go ahead, Shelley. We'll get you.
I'm Shelley, I'm one of Fred's students.
Hey, Shelley.
Fred, I want to start by congratulating you for being so vulnerable and for the healing path that you're on and for sharing this with us. I shared your book with my friends, and I'm really proud to be here today. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
I wanted to ask if you could speak a little about your journey about writing this. Was it easy to write? Were there moments where you knew you had to put something down? Were you stuck in places? Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yes. So some parts were easy. Some parts I was worried about my family hearing me write about my brother. So I was like, they're gonna. And even when it came out, I'm still like, but they all bought it. Everybody, all my family bought everything. I'm doing a book signing in Virginia, but they all bought it. But I still was like, And then what happened? My brother, the one that I talk about in there, in the middle of me writing this, reached out to me and said, I don't know what was wrong with me growing up. He didn't know I was writing this. He said, I don't know what was wrong with me growing up. I was just so mean. He didn't take a family picture with us. And my mom and dad, they passed. So every time we post that picture on Facebook, he gets sad because he was being mean. And when it comes to the photo, for no reason, he couldn't explain why he didn't. And so out of the blue, he just called me one day and was just apologizing. So, and then just up and downs, depending on what I was writing about. Sometimes I would cry. Sometimes I would have to stop writing and then go outside and take a break or whatever. But it was a good therapeutic process, I would say.
Thank you.